We have someone who's joining us with the panel that I didn't introduce before because she just was gracious enough to come and speak with the panel at this time, and it's Kadey Schultz. Kadey's a partner at Hughes Amos. Her practice focuses on issues relating to statutory accident benefits, including first-party disputes concerning benefits, private priority and loss transfer arbitrations, conflicts arising from the interaction between the SABs and WSIB, opportunistic and organized auto fraud, and broker-related litigation. She also handles personal injury, general negligence, and solicitor's negligence claims for Law Pro. She's published and lectured extensively in the area of statutory accident benefits with such organizations as the Advocate Society, the Canadian Defense Lawyers Association, the Law Society of Upper Canada, oh God, the list goes on and on, Metro Toronto Lawyers.
As will she.
Yeah. Okay, you just get ready, sir. Get ready. Yeah. I think you get the point. That's why we've invited her, because she's done all these things. And in 2010, she's traveled throughout Ontario teaching about the new SABs and the rules of civil procedure. So please welcome Kadey to the panel. To get us started, one of the issues that's been particularly troubling, and hence our topic, where's the funding, is the issue of litigation loans or treatment loans. And I know for me, much like Jim said, I don't want, I avoid putting my clients in those situations. But there's and Kadey, I'm going to address this to you, there's the risk between your client incurring the debt and the possibility of recovery. And perhaps you could speak to those issues on the funding approach.
Well, the risk of incurring 30 or 31% interest charges.
Oh, you have to speak into, sorry, they can't hear you.
Usually I don't need a mic. The issue of litigation funding at 30 or 31% interest is always concerning. And now that we're in this new regime where sky might be the limit, I say that to encourage the plaintiff folks in the room, until we have the case law come out and really define what the MIG means, what the $50,000 includes, what CAT actually is. The risk on taking on those loans with those interest rates really is on both sides. I'm concerned about taking on a loan like that and then being found to not qualify beyond the $3,500 or the $50,000 because it's catastrophic in a different way to a family. So obviously, Renee, I would support your position that if there's any alternative to going that route, you would want to do that. It used to be that SAB's interest rates were the best financial investment you could ever make. I don't know about any of you, but in the last 10 years, my financial portfolio hasn't made 24% compounding interest per year on anything. And that's something to think about. So really it would depend on the facts of your case and your claimant's, your client's situation, because if they are not absolutely destitute for that money, I would try to stay away from those loans.
One of the things that I think we all get desensitized about a little bit is, everyone in this room, I think, deals with people who are injured, disabled, problems every single day. For that individual, whether it's a MIG situation and they can't work, or a catastrophic, injury situation and they can't work, the bottom line is their family still has to live. They still need food. They still have to pay the rent. Most people live paycheck to paycheck, and so missing a check, let alone 6, 7, 8 hundreds, is going to really be a huge issue. So while I certainly agree with Jim's sentiment, I think that we really need to, consider the issue of these loans in the right situation with the right advice to the client, and the client being very informed about what the risks are either way. Because even if it turns out to be a mid-case, Kadey, as long as I've got a tort case, at least if I can get the rent paid for 6 months and take some of that pressure off and allow you guys to do your good rehab work while that stress is hopefully taken off their plate, I think that's a real benefit to people.
Well, Adam, and I would say that if you are going to take out that loan, you want to let the insurer know right away and let them know that you have been forced into recommending that route to your client because of the insurer's decision-making and analysis on that specific file, and invite the insurer to meet with you, meet with your client, get to know your client better, and empower the insurer to try to appreciate the perspective and the lens that you see the file through. Because, these loans are still relatively new, and if you allocate in writing the appropriate weight to the risk that your client is incurring by having to engage that process, I would venture to guess that a decision maker down the road, if you've papered it well, is going to appreciate why they had to go that far and really look at the log notes and look at the adjusting and look at how the insurer has handled the case if they've known from the beginning that they've entertained that risk.
Just 2 points to consider.
I'm really a defense lawyer, I swear.
Really?
2 points to consider. The problematic cases probably are the people that are living, have a living standard that is beyond that which is papered on their tax returns. And those are people that are going to have a hard time proving their income. They aren't getting their income replacement benefits at the level that they're actually living. They're living on cash or what have you. They're the challenges in every respect, because they're crashing down to reality that they have no money coming in that they used to have coming in, and they're hard pressed to get that money returned to them without going back to work, and they can't. And so if they haven't got a viable tort claim, if they've got a liability issue, they are in dire circumstances, and they're not easily dealt with. The second point I wanted to make is there's a case out West End, a town in Burlington case, where plaintiff's counsel was chastised pretty severely for basically being asleep at the switch when all these loans were happening on her watch. And the suggestion is that plaintiff's counsel have an obligation to monitor and ensure that their clients don't over-leverage those loans.
I think that in terms of spending time, you might be better served as plaintiff's lawyer spending time pushing that file towards a hearing. Nothing gets people to talk faster and more realistically than having a hearing date staring them in the face. And so, as I said earlier, get your evidence, get it early, get it out there early, move your file along quickly, and lo and behold, you might have some people willing to listen to you if they know they have a hearing in a week, a month, as opposed to the threat of maybe a hearing, or even better, the threat of maybe an application for mediation at FISCO. I love seeing those letters. If you don't do this, we're going to apply to FISCO, and then you just take that letter and you put it in the calendar for 2015 to revisit the file. So if you want action on your files, the best thing to do is move them, and that means give them the opportunity to make an informed decision by giving them the paperwork that they're going to need. If they make an informed decision that you disagree with, get an application for mediation going and get ready to go either to arbitration or to through the court system to trial. And you might find people are a little bit more agreeable to talking settlement on realistic terms when they're faced with a hearing date.
Jamie, don't be so skeptical about mediation backlogs. They're going to wave a magic wand in May, and all 34,000 of them are going to disappear instantly.
I was going to say to Jamie, it's very hard to disagree with you because I like you so much, but you're completely wrong. And the reasons that you're wrong are what Eric stated.
I'm talking to my wife again. It's the same thing.
Not lately. The problems these days are we're facing a at least 12-month delay from the time you ask FISCO to give you a mediation until you actually get there, and it's getting longer, not shorter. It's so bad now that the courts have said that you can now file for mediation and have a consent fail so that you can at least then move on to ask.
Deemed fail.
Deemed fail. Yeah. To move on for arbitration or litigation. The litigation end will take you a minimum of 2 to 2.5 years from the day you start, And the arbitration end right now, it's not so bad. It's about 9 or 10 months. The problem is, of course, with the deemed failed thing that they've now allowed, you're going to see this huge backlog of mediations become a huge backlog of arbitration. So we're going to have the same frickin' problem in 6 months.
The deemed fails.
And meanwhile, sorry to say, Jamie, and I appreciate you do defense work, what you ignore is the fact that the victim needs treatment and funding. It ignores it. And it's great to say, just move your case ahead. Well, you can do them both simultaneously.
That was my point.
Yeah.
The problem is what we tend to see is people focusing, sort of like with horse blinders on one aspect. So they're focusing on the Bruce Point loan or what have you.
Could you,
At the same time,
speak into the mic?
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I'm arguing with Jim.
Sorry, did you say something?
And I'm going to talk.
I was waiting for you to reply. I was just looking at you.
I'm going to talk very quietly so he has to listen. But the problem is we don't see people doing that. They say, I can get this medical evidence, or I can get that medical report, or I will get it, and then
don't do
6
anything.
months later, you're still waiting, or
That's the problem with
or they don't do the application for mediation.
That's the problem with 70% of the bar.
Yeah.
Is they say, oh, I'm going to sue you. Okay.
When you show up at a mediation, a private mediation, the first question that every mediator asks is, when's your trial date? And there's a reason that they ask that. For exactly the reasons that Jamie said is, there's nothing like a trial date, an arbitration date, staring everyone in the face to get everyone to actually act reasonably. There's still opportunities to resolve cases, and one of the things that I've been a proponent of, because our mediation system is just, it's horrifically broken. It can't work. It's become a real barrier, is, under some circumstances, we should try and get rid of it, get rid of the requirement to mediate, and replace it with a requirement to get people with authority on the phone at the same time, because that's really, in at least 85% of cases, that's what it takes to get them settled, not the mediator at Fisco, but the fact that people with authority who are motivated to settle the case haven't shelved the file. They've got 2 hours or 3 hours set aside to do nothing but discuss that case. And it's amazing how often that will help to resolve the problem.
And just so our friends at ADR and the other mediation service providers that are here don't get excited, Adam's talking about fiscal mediations, not the private mediation.
I was actually...
Which actually works quite well.
I was actually going to warn Adam that he was about to get barraged with rotten eggs from mediators in the room who are about to rebel.
Even to settle files, I've done it with you. I find as a accident benefit carrier on CAT files, if there's no tort loss, most of my files, I go into the lawyer's office and settle with the lawyer, and we've done it on, like, more than one file. I don't think you need the whole, even mediation process to do it.
Yeah, and we've been doing that for a long time, and it really takes like-minded people. We've come to use mediation as a crutch. You can't possibly settle a case unless there's some mediator being paid $4,000 to do that. And the reality is there are many cases where Kathleen is very useful. And we need the help of a mediator to get things done and to get, a lot of the times it's for our clients, right? Not as much for the lawyers, but the clients need to hear it and they need to hear the other side of the case. But the vast majority of cases with people with authority, with the requisite level of knowledge both about the case and about the law, people can get those cases settled. Right, Kev? Okay.
Well, and just to bring us up to date on the case law about the Fisco mediations, 2 decisions were released in the last 2 weeks, one from the Superior Court, one from the arbitration level at Fisco, that both concluded that if Fisco has not processed the application for mediation within 60 days of receiving it, it is a deemed failure. So going back to the, as of May 1st, there's going to be a cure to the backlog. There's 34,000 backdated applications for mediation in the system that, at least in theory, if not in reality, as of 2 weeks ago, were deemed failures. And whether that becomes an onslaught to the arbitration unit at Fisco, I would think that a portion of those are going to go through the courts. Unfortunately, a huge portion of them are worth less than $25,000. The value of the issues in
A
dispute.
huge portion are worth less than 25 cents.
Okay, well, Eric, yes, we can agree on that too. But the cases that are worth less than $25,000 as claimed in the application for mediation now, those are going into the small claims court, where there's